Hello and welcome to this week's episode of SportsDay Rangers. I'm John Blake.
And I'm Evan Grant.
And Evan, the hits keep coming on and off the field for the Rangers. On the field, you were in Miami where the club dropped 2 of 3 to the Marlins and didn't hit a whole lot. And off the field, a big blow with Jack Leiter going down with ankle surgery that could put him out for several months.
Yeah, John, and it's an interesting wording that the hits keep coming because the hits do not keep coming on the field for the Rangers. They just can't ever seem to get this offense moving in the right direction for any amount of time, and we can talk more about that. But the Leiter injury really, I think, is a big hurdle for this team to cross. The lack of starting pitching depth has always been a concern going into the season, and now the Rangers are scrambling to find a fifth starter and longmen in the bullpen.
And you wrote in the last 48 hours about that offense, 10 total runs in Miami, and not doing too well with runners on base and in scoring position.
Exactly. The team went 2 for 17 with runners in scoring position in Miami. They had a situation in the second game where they had the first 2 runners of the game on, and then they had the bases loaded in the second inning and somehow didn't get but 1 run. But let's look at the bright side, John. Our guest this week is going to be former Rangers outfielder Rusty Greer, who is now the head coach at Fort Worth Christian, where he coaches Grady Emerson, who just won the National Gatorade Player of the Year award and may end up being the first overall pick in the draft. And as always, Rusty is a Rangers Hall of Famer.
And I'm going to tie Rusty into the archives in Arlington because I went back and looked. Rusty played every one of his games, his professional MLB games in the majors with the Rangers, and that hasn't happened a lot in club history. And we'll take a look at that in the archives in Arlington.
All right. And here you go. You guys, as always, and I'm still waiting for that first comment. You can reach out to any of us on X with Rangers questions or comments. I'm at Evan_P_Grant, and he is at Ranger Blake. And if you want to help us grow the show, rate us, subscribe us, and share it with your friends. It's a party gift, really.
And believe it or not, we've done this now for 44 episodes. This is
the Henry Aaron episode.
Right. If we get to our 50th, I'll have a little champagne. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, let's talk about Miami. And was the highlight might have been the Scottish fans, the Scottish World Cup fans there on Monday night.
Yeah, another brigade of the Tartan Army came to Miami, and I think they were expecting close to 8,000. It was loud in Lone Depot Park, which is an anomaly for that place. And the Rangers rallied and won a game. They needed a win because they were going to face Sandy Alcantara and Sandy Alcantara, I should say. I always mess up the pronunciation. And Yuri Perez in the final 2 games. And so they managed to get a win in that first game and then blared "No Scotland, no party" in the clubhouse afterwards.
So the Rangers, Evan, are now, as this drops on a Friday night, they will reach the halfway point of the season. They're 38-42 right now. They've dropped to 4th place by a percentage point as we tape this behind the Houston Astros. And it's been so we're at the halfway point. And it seems like it's a broken record on certain parts of this team. And offensively, again, there have been injuries. Carter's out, Seager's out. Hopefully, I'm assuming he'll get back, hopefully this weekend. But they seem to be able to get guys on base a lot of times, but they just can't complete the job and get runs across the plate.
They are, John, statistically, as we record this, the least efficient offense in Major League Baseball, scoring 27% of the runners who reach base. They are the worst team in baseball with the bases loaded. they are getting traffic, but all they get is a traffic jam because they just don't get the runners home. And they had opportunities. Look, they had opportunities against Alcantara on Tuesday night. In the first inning, they got the first two guys on base, double play. They've hit into an enormous number of double plays. That inning was squandered. Next inning, they load the bases with nobody out, and they only got a run because Connor Norby bobbled a ball at first base and was only able to get one out. He should have had a first to home, maybe back to first double play. So, listen, I don't understand what this team does with in these situations, and there have been different iterations of failure, but we are now going on 3 years of offensive failure for the Rangers, and they've changed hitting coaches, they've changed managers, and I think it's reaching the point. I think it's reaching a critical point here. I've kind of conjured up in my head, and I'll write about this. But as we sit here today, I think the Rangers have no more to give than 12 losses before the deadline to make a decision on which direction they're going to go. If they go 20-12 over the final 32 games leading up to the deadline, it puts them 4 games over 500, and I think you can make a case that you'll be in the hunt then. Otherwise, if you don't go 20-12, if you go any worse than that, I think you're really facing an uphill battle, and I think the situation then becomes who all do the Rangers trade off, and it could be significant.
Well, Evan, the other significant event of the week was the loss of Jack Leiter, obviously, and then the Rangers tried Jose Corniel and Cal Quantrill on Tuesday night. What Jordan Montgomery probably a month away from joining the rotation with Leiter out for an extensive period of time. Not a lot of depth there. What is the alternative here?
There aren't a lot of alternatives. I think the injury to Leiter or the injury to any member of the starting rotation was going to be a real challenge for this club because of the lack of depth. And look, some of it is circumstances. Cody Bradford was supposed to be one of the first lines of defense. His rehab has taken longer. Jacob Latz was supposed to be a line of defense. He's been so good in the bullpen that it would be hard to move him into the rotation unless you say, okay, the rest of this season doesn't matter, and we're going to transition him back to a full-time starter. The minor leaguers have gone mostly backwards this year. All of the guys who are on the 40-man roster, Corniel, Leandro Lopez, David Davalillo, and Winston Santos, who they just brought up from Double-A, have ERAs, well into the 5s and above. And then the Rangers just signed Marco Gonzalez, who hasn't pitched in the big league since 24. So there's not good options here, John. And I think what you're seeing is, just after one start with this situation, you had to scramble to get an extra arm there for Miami. You're going to go into this same cycle every 5th day, it feels like, and it's going to be a real uphill battle to win those games. And as I just mentioned, with not many losses to give between now and the deadline, you're probably looking at losing most of those games, right? If there's 5 starts for the number 5 starter between now and the deadline, I'm not sure you win any of those games because it's constantly going to be a bullpen game or an unproven guy.
And that puts more pressure on your relievers, and I think obviously we saw that on Wednesday, where you can't use Latz and Junis every day, and Cole Winn, who has really he's been hurt, he's struggled, and you're not getting the same results out of Cole Winn as you did in 2025, and it's starting to show a little bit that wear and tear on the bullpen as well.
Right. And when you get into this kind of situation, right, and when you've got so many key guys down, and the Rangers were without a number of relievers on Tuesday, they still needed to give Junis and Latz days off after pitching on back-to-back days. And you get to these kinds of situations, you really have to be careful about the ripple effect. And to that point, I think in another situation, maybe the Rangers go to Peyton Gray in the 7th or 8th inning on Wednesday, but you can't afford to go to guys who are semi-high leverage guys, when you're down and you've got the rest of the bullpen out, you've got to take your chances with the lower leverage, more rested guys.
And Jacob deGrom, just a few kudos there. A lot of swing and miss yesterday. It just keeps going at 38. A tough luck loss, but just keeps going and doing it at a high level.
Yeah, he does. And I mean, listen, Jacob deGrom yesterday was, as always, pissed off. And because he walked two guys, and both of those guys that were walks, one turned into a run and the other helped facilitate a run. But here's the bottom line. Jacob deGrom pitched another great game, 6 innings, 4 hits, 2 walks, and it forces the offense is forcing the pitchers to be perfect, and pitchers aren't going to be perfect. So this lack of offense that has pervaded this team for 3 years continues to put pressure on other elements of the club, and that's where I think you're getting to a point where this just may not be viable much longer.
Right. Let's just conclude this with the update on Corey Seager here. As the team goes into Toronto with a tough 4-game series against the Blue Jays, what do you see the latest is there?
I think as this drops, we're recording this on Thursday, and when it drops on Friday, I think Corey will have played on Thursday night. He wasn't active on Wednesday, partly because the Major League Baseball concussion protocol requires a lot of approvals and a lot of testing to clear it and then to be officially reinstated. And with a 12 o'clock game after a night game, it's really hard to get all of those approvals through Major League Baseball. I just want to say this very clearly. I know that there are fans who don't find Corey to be as engaging a personality as they would like the face of a club to be. I know there are fans who are frustrated that he's been injured, but this is a brain injury. And for whatever the circumstances were, he had a head injury. There is a protocol that has to be cleared. There is nothing, as has been suggested on certain outlets, that Corey was being lackadaisical in his return from this concussion protocol. I just want to be clear on that he was doing everything he could. He worked out on the field. There are things that you have to clear, and there are symptoms that cannot in any way show up. And so he will be back as soon as he possibly can. I go back to San Diego and Jake Cronenworth, another guy who has been on the concussion protocol this year. I think he's on day like 24 now. This is a tricky injury, and it is not to be trifled with.
Well, hopefully, Evan, Corey will be able to contribute here and be a big producer here in the second half of the season because the Rangers really need him. But anyway, let's move on to our guest this week. It's Rusty Greer, Rangers Hall of Famer. We'll talk to Rusty about the 1996 team reunion, which is coming up in August. But a big part of what Rusty does now is he's a high school baseball coach, had a great year with his Fort Worth Christian club, and has a shortstop that might be the first pick in the draft. So we'll talk to Rusty next. We're very pleased to have Rusty Greer back as our guest this week on SportsDay Rangers. He was kind enough to do it last year in our inaugural season, and now he's back. And we're going to talk to him today, of course, about the 96 season. That anniversary is coming up for all you fans that want to buy your tickets now, August 21st and 22nd. We've got about 25 of the 96 team guys coming back, so it should be a good weekend. But we're going to start with Rusty Greer, the high school baseball coach at Fort Worth Christian Academy, which had a marvelous season this year. They finished 34-7 and lost in the Division I TAPS championship game to Lutheran South Academy from Houston. And Rusty, congratulations on the season, and we'll talk about Grady Emerson here in a minute. But that championship game, that had to be one of the toughest losses you ever had in your career, with a 3-0 lead, the 5-hour rain delay, and then coming back and Lutheran scoring 4 runs in the last 2 innings.
You're exactly right. It was one of those deals where everything was going in our favor, and not to use a rain delay as an excuse, but that took some steam out of our sails. And with Lutheran South, they're really really good, and they can flip on a dime. And when we came back out after that rain delay, we had 6 outs to get, and they scored 4 runs and wound up winning 4-3. Which at the end of that game, of course, my players are devastated. And I walked in the dugout, walked out of the dugout, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. It was just one of those things that just snatched away. And you snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, and that's exactly what we did.
What did you end up saying?
I just told them, well, see, part of the problem is you have to go right into the ceremonies and all that stuff. So I didn't have a chance to address them right thereafter. But after the game was over, I told them that they need to be proud of themselves. They worked hard. They climbed, and I talk about climbing a mountain all the time, and how people they want to be at the top, but they don't want to make the climb. And they made the climb right to the top, and fell just a little bit short. But that's not that. And I told them, I said that doesn't isn't any reason to not be proud of what they'd accomplished this year.
And you had a really senior-laden team. I think you had 15 seniors maybe. Did that make it doubly hard that this group was playing, a lot of these kids were playing their last game?
Well, yeah, it makes it hard because we got to play again in 27 too. So I had 16 seniors graduate, so there's a bunch of spots, and that's from my standpoint. But from the player standpoint, yes, I talked to a couple guys. I could tell they were kind of emotionally down after we got back to the clubhouse and everybody was leaving. And I spoke with them individually, and I asked them just what's on their mind, and they said it's just the last time I played baseball. And I told them at our banquet, I told them, everybody's clock gets wound at some point, and my clock did. My son's clock got wound. Nolan Ryan's clock got wound. I said it happens at some point, and I said it's what you do with that clock while it's ticking that says you've been a baseball player or you've wasted your time. And for my guys that when their clock got wound, I think they made the most of their clock while it was ticking.
Some of us wish Evan Grant's clock would get wound, but I'll throw it to Evan here to talk a little bit about the draft.
I've gotten clocked a couple of times, but I don't know about wound. Rusty, I spent a little bit of time with you and with Grady Emerson right before the playoffs started, and we talked about what this experience has been like. How did you see Grady go through the whole process of being under the microscope as a number 1 or number 2 pick overall?
A lot of pressure. I mean, there's a lot of pressure there because everything that the kid did, it was being watched. And I mean, when he got to the stadium, how he interacted with teammates, what he did before the game, was he playing hacky sack everything you could imagine was being watched. And that's just the peripheral stuff. Not we obviously know that everything he's doing on the field is being watched and it's being scrutinized and it's being criticized or applauded. And I thought he handled the pressure really well. Of course, um, he's been the number one guy since he's been about 14 or 15. So for a while, so he's had that prospect pressure. But I think one thing that helped him was all the stuff he had done up until last season, which would be, all the perfect game stuff and the area code and USA and all that stuff, 4-time USA guy. So he's been under that pressure for a while. And so he's learned how to handle that. And I thought he did a great job, especially as uh, for a 17, 18-year-old kid, putting that behind him and going and playing the game and keeping his desire to win a state championship first and foremost.
Yeah, his dad told me that in his junior season and before that, it was clear always that Grady was the best player on any team he was on. And you had very good players, but it's clear he was the best player. He's the best player in high school baseball this year. So he was the best player on this team. But I think did you have to make efforts to make sure that he didn't feel the pressure of being the best player on the field all the time, that he was just another guy? And how did he respond to that?
that was one of my big mantras to him is that we have good players. Um, is he the best player on the field? Yes. However, you can't play 5 positions. You go play one position and be the best at that one position you can be. And if somebody else isn't doing their job, then that's their problem. That's the problem, a problem that I've got to deal with. I just told him, I said, "You're a baseball player, and it's time to be a baseball player. And being a baseball player means you can't play second base or center field or catcher. You got to go play shortstop, and then let everybody else do what they do." And but what winds up happening is it doesn't matter if it's Grady Emerson or Griffin Carney at second base or Bay James in center. They're good players, and even though Grady's the best player, all those good players raise each other's games. And so I think that he really bought into the fact that I wasn't looking to him to get 7 hits in a game. I wanted him to go play shortstop and hit second for us. And if he didn't get a hit, doesn't mean we're going to lose. Doesn't mean we're gonna win. You didn't get a hit, man. Don't take it for what it is, and go defend. Or if something happens in the field, go get a hit. But I just wanted him to go be a baseball player and play shortstop's all I want.
You know, as we got into this too, this area has had some really good high school shortstops go in the first round in the last few years, and you've had some experience with them. You worked with Bobby Witt Jr. When he was a kid. He played on Colleyville Heritage with your sons, and you saw Jordan Lawler. Um, and I think I asked you this, Rusty, you know, and it's an unfair comp, right? Because Bobby's the best young player in the game right now. But how does Grady's game stack up against those kinds of players?
He's right there with him. I mean, it's he's the number one high school player in the country for a reason. He's going to be an extremely high draft pick for a reason. And that reason is he's a really, really good baseball player. Is there room to grow? Sure. But for me, I think with any of these guys that are being coming out of high school like that, I think the biggest thing that needs to happen is them just grow up naturally, meaning they mature as an adult and they begin to just get bigger and stronger naturally, and their mindset becomes a more confident mindset, and just becoming an adult. And once that happens, and you begin to get that experience through the game of baseball, um, that's when it all comes together. And I think you've seen that out of Bobby and any of these kids that are drafted at 18 years old. I mean, they're thrown into a grown man's world. It takes them a minute to get there. I don't care who it is. And once they get there, if you're a good player, as all these guys are, that's when you see it. That's when you see it culminate into what um, becomes an all-star player or a Gold Glove winner, whatever it may be.
I'm curious about one thing. I know that the scouts and the people who have come in. Look, the night that I went to see him, Michael Choice was there, former Ranger who's now scouting for Baltimore. The Orioles president of baseball operations, Mike Elias, was there. The Twins were there. The White Sox were there. I know that Phil Nevin, another former Ranger who is now a White Sox special assistant, has been over to see him a number of times, as has John Daniels, who's with the Tampa Bay Rays now. The thing I'm wondering about, you know, the scouts aren't getting to the players now, right? They just watch them. They can't really talk to them. And for you, for some of these guys who were former players, you're kind of the middleman. What kind of questions are you getting about them? What kind of questions have guys been asking you?
Well, your typical talent and skill questions. What do you think his weakness is at the plate, or what's he doing different defensively, or does he come to play every day? And so you get those questions. Those are easy questions to answer with all those kind of guys.
Right,
Yes,
because the
they're good.
talent's
Yes,
obvious, right? All of
it's
that's
obvious.
obvious.
So what I tried to steer people towards, and I had questions of how is he off the field? Is he a good young man? Is he respectful? I had all those questions. And for me, with Grady Emerson, I think the big thing is those intangibles. He's got heart. He's an ultra competitor. He has expectations of himself, which is a good thing. I call it horsepower. Any of those players has horsepower, and what do they do with that horsepower? And for me, he brings all those intangibles, his aptitudes there. And so those are things as if I'm a scout, which I don't know their job, but if I'm a scout, I want a guy who has not only the skill, but all those intangibles, because now I don't have to worry about those. I've got to worry about him getting better skill wise.
Right, because we all know the sixth tool is makeup, right? I mean, everybody talks about the 5 tools. The sixth tool that nobody seems to have an ability to really quantify is makeup, and that's where everybody struggles on getting these guys right.
Right, and that's I got questions on that, and I think that sums it up in a word, the makeup word, and he's got his makeup's off the charts, and it's just gonna, and have said this too. When this becomes Grady's job, he's going to get better because right now he had to go to school, he had to do homework, he had to all that stuff, and now he can focus on doing what he loves. And if you talk to Grady enough, he truly loves to play, but he loves to practice. And when I say loves to practice, it's a true and I'm not talking about him taking ground balls as an individual. He loves team practice. He loves first and third defense and bunt defense. And so that's a rare find as well. Somebody that comes to practice every single day. And I think that says a lot about the person as well.
What's the strangest question anybody asked you?
uh, well, you get to compare him to Bobby. That's in my head. That's a strange question.
Tough.
You
Again,
know,
because Bobby is just off the charts, right? He's a generational player. There's not a
right,
comp there, right?
right. You can comp some things, but as an overall player, I don't think it's fair. And people have to have comps, but when you're 18 years old, it's hard to comp somebody because you just don't know what they're going to be. And I had a question. What do you see his weakness as? And I'm like, man, it's high school baseball. There is no weakness right now. If you put him against guys that are in double A at this point, you're gonna expose something. But isn't that what your minor league system's for, is to correct that? And I did say that to him. And that's another good thing I think is that I understand the pro ball side and the development side of things. And I could talk intelligently to those guys. And sometimes they got some pushback. Sometimes, I agreed with them, but for the most part, it was good conversations, and I don't think there's any denying the fact that the kid's a good player.
Before we get into 96, I was just going to say, Rusty, you've done a lot in your career in baseball. I mean, did you enjoy having a player of this ilk? And, I mean, this is your third year coaching high school and everything. It seems like you've really adapted to it and really love the experience.
I do. I do. It's as with anything, as any coach, it gets frustrating at times. But to have a player like Grady, he's an easy guy to coach because you tell him once and it's done. There's no over and over and over and over, and that's the aptitude. He comes to the park ready to play every day. That's the desire. He wants to win. He's excited for his teammates when they do well. That's the teammate side. He's the competitive side. He wants to win. And then he has expectations of himself, which makes him um, want to succeed and work hard. So it was a pleasure coaching him. He and I don't know. He's just a good player and one of those guys to just keep an eye on as he moves forward.
So do you want to talk about a little 96? Change the subject a little bit. And 30 years later, 1996, and we are having this reunion. And like I said, I've been really, really impressed at the number of guys that really want to come back from that team and just kind of see guys they haven't seen in a while. What's your feeling as you kind of go into this? And you looking forward to seeing some of these guys?
Yeah, I am. You show me the list of guys, or Tony showed me the list of guys, and it'll be fun to see them. And so because some of those guys I haven't seen since 1996. Some of them, the Wits and the Russells and those guys, they live around here and we hang out together. But yeah, it'll be fun to see a lot of those guys and relive all the stories that are going to get told. And and the stories that are funny, the heartbreaking stories, and all that good stuff. But yeah, it'll be exciting.
Who are you looking forward to seeing most?
I always like seeing Dean Palmer. He's one of my favorites. I haven't seen Kevin Gross in a long time. I look forward to seeing him. If Kevin Elster makes it, I'd like to see him. So those guys there, they were an integral part of really my growing up in 1996 a little bit. I wish Will could be there. I don't know if he'll be there or not, but of course, Locker next to him for 5 years. That made me grow up quick. But all of them getting there would be great.
John, are you not able to get Will here?
Will's daughter that weekend is in the Miss USA pageant.
Oh, okay.
So I really couldn't push too hard, Evan, on that. You know
what I'd
do
say
you want
about
me
that?
to do?
Dang!
That's right.
Well, you mentioned Dean Palmer, and sometimes he gets overlooked on what he did for that team. He drove in over 100 runs, had 30-plus home runs. He was a huge part of that team, and I think sometimes Dino does get kind of overlooked a little bit.
I agree. Dino I thought was a good player, and he was one of those guys that um, he always seemed to come up with the big knock when you least expected it. And typically it was a home run. And he had the most power of, in my opinion, some of the most, if not the most power on that team, including Juan Gonzalez. Because if you watch him in BP, and, Billy Ripken called him the natural man, and his bat speed was incredible. But he could always be counted on to play every single day. And I know that's what Johnny Oates wanted, was guys that went out there and he put the saddle on them and played them every single day. And the guys on that team wanted to play every single day. And so that fit right into Johnny's line of thinking.
You mentioned Will Clark, and we've talked about this before, and what a leader he was on that team, and how close you guys were, staying after the game in the clubhouse and everything. And those are the kind of memories that's what resonates with me about how tight you guys were, and how you battled through the adversity to win the first division title here. You got any couple of stories on how you guys kind of got through that?
Well, it's as we've talked, John, that team was a true team to me. It was, and it wasn't the most talented. Of course, you had Pudge, you had Juan. They're pretty talented. Everybody had talent. They wouldn't be in the big leagues. But I think that team was a good team because, one, we were all like minded. We wanted to play. We wanted to win. But then it was a bunch of good dudes that enjoyed being together. Over at Bobby Witt's house, Kevin Elster had a birthday party for his dog, and we all got together.
Wait, hold on. You guys went, a bunch of grown men went to another grown man's house for a dog birthday party?
No. This was grown men, their wives, the manager, the GM, all of us. I mean, that's the way it was. I mean, on we would have an off day.
Did you all wear little birthday hats for the dog?
Did not wear birthday hats, but it was a birthday party for his dog.
Yeah, I think there were other things involved, probably.
Probably so, but we go to Bobby's house after a game with a day off the next day. Johnny Oates and Doug Melvin would show up and hang out with us, and of course they left a little earlier than we did. But
what are you saying?
It was just we hung out for a while. That's what I'm saying. But it was just a good group of guys.
Yeah.
And but getting through that season, coming down in September, we were up John, 9 games. We lost 4 straight in Seattle, and then we lost the first game.
Yep.
The first game in Anaheim, and we were struggling a little bit, and but we battled back, and it's through that leadership of the Will Clarks and all those guys, Mark McLemore, Darryl Hamilton, all those guys are what kept that train moving to get to that end game.
I guess we can close with this as you talk about that. Rangers, we all know the story, how the Rangers clinched the division on the field, 15 innings. And then that clubhouse celebration after that game that went into the very wee hours of the morning. And we had a day game the next day, and like I tell people, the entire lineup, people wouldn't probably remember any of the names because regulars were in no shape to play.
Correct. Did I play? I might have had to play.
You might have played because I think you did play, but
I was probably in no shape to play either.
The infield, I know didn't play. So
right. Yeah, well, and that was a good time because even though it was we didn't get to rush the field, it was still and I said this the other night on when I was there doing the interview, it was a relief because it was the first time we'd won the division, and the manner we won it, meaning we had a 9-game lead and we were looking pretty solid, and it got kind of tight. It was a relief to be able to get all that off our chest. And what people don't realize is it doesn't, that stress and that pressure doesn't start in April on game one. It starts the year before when you're getting ready for spring training, because you see how the roster is being built and you see the players that are on the roster. Hey man, we got a chance. And so as you go into spring training, that pressure begins to build because now you're coming together as a group and you're seeing what people can do. On that team, we had all 5 starters made every start. Nobody missed a start. We had guys playing. Will Clark played with a broken foot, and it was just stuff like that that said this was a good team, and people were willing to play and go out on the field and do things. I can remember one time I came in the clubhouse and my back was hurting, and I told Will, he's sitting there. I said, "Man, I don't know if I can go today." Johnny had the rule of you had to come tell him if you couldn't play. You couldn't go through the training.
right.
And so I didn't want to go in there and tell him I couldn't play. So I told Will, and he goes, "Let me tell you something. Will." He said, "Let me tell you something." He said, "You're a 3-hitter. We need you in the lineup." And I said, "Yes, sir." So it was that kind of pressure too. That when a Will Clark looks at you and says, "We need you," you answer the bell, and that's how that team was. Dave Valley, he had his meeting in Toronto. We answered the bell. Just different people played a different role.
All right, here you go, guys. Who can name that lineup that played in that game after the clincher?
I can't.
How many players can you name?
I'll try, Evan.
All right, let's go.
Lee Stevens at first.
Yeah.
Stillwell played short.
No. Stillwell played second.
Plays second. Rene Gonzalez at short.
Rene Gonzalez at third.
Shortstop. Must have been some guy. Was Benji at short?
Benji Gill played shortstop.
Okay. Kevin Brown caught. I remember
Kevin Brown caught. Not the Kevin Brown, but the other Kevin Brown.
The other Kevin Brown. Did Rusty play?
Rusty did not play. He was too hungover.
Did not play. So it would be Buford.
Buford is center.
Newson.
No, the Deacon did not play.
Did not play. Must have been someone else we brought up from the minors in September.
Lou Frazier in left.
Lou Frazier.
Sweet Lou.
Jack Voigt in right.
Jack Voigt. Okay. Yep.
And the DH that day who hit a home run off of Chuck Finley and also tripled, Luis Ortiz, the former Rangers batting coach.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So apparently we did hang out later than
who started? Did we start a reliever?
Of course, as always, Darren Oliver had to wear it, so he won. He pitched.
Okay.
And then the great Jose Albero got a hold.
Yeah, Albero.
Ed Vosberg pitched to a couple of lefties, and then the save went to Gil Heredia.
Hey, what I can tell you is this: me and Laurie and I, we left there about 3 a.m. And we got home, and I had 2 dogs, and I turned them loose in the neighborhood, and we walked around the neighborhood for like an hour. The dogs running all over the place.
I'm sure your neighbors appreciated that.
Well, we weren't loud. We were just celebrating.
Yeah, celebrating. Well, it's going to be a great
We
weekend for
appreciate
all those guys.
we appreciate the time. Yep.
Yeah, my
But we
pleasure.
appreciate Rusty. And you will be, I assume, will you be at the Emerson House on draft day, or it's on a Saturday this year, right,
Yeah,
Evan? They moved it to
we'll be
Saturday.
up there. Yeah, we'll be
Yeah.
up there. July 11th, we'll be there, and hopefully everything works out the way it should.
Well, as always, Evan, Rusty was very engaging, and his insights, and it's been really fun to watch Rusty coach Grady Emerson this year, and the enthusiasm that Rusty has as a high school baseball coach. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, and look, I mean, he is really taking this seriously. I went out there and I watched Grady and watched Rusty. I've talked to Rusty about it. He takes this very, very seriously. And you and I have kidded about this. There are a number of former Rangers who have gotten into the whole idea of coaching high school players. And it's just really, it's really great to say that Rusty is not taking this for granted in any way.
Rusty's one of the greats, and looking forward to having him back with the other players in August for the '96 team reunion. So, in the archives in Arlington for today, we're going to tag along a little bit with Rusty Greer. He was a Ranger Hall of Famer, played from 1994 to 2002 when injuries really riddled his career. He tried to come back for more than 2 years. He had like 7 surgeries. But what it did was it gave Rusty the distinction of playing all his entire career in the big leagues with the Texas Rangers. 1,027 games. He's 11th all time in games played. And there is not another member of the Texas Rangers Baseball Hall of Fame that played their entire careers with Texas. Some of them played for the Rangers 3 different times. Ruben Sierra, Kenny Rogers, both played with the Rangers 3 different times. But the Rangers, and again, this is a different era where guys don't play their whole careers with one team. In the last 20 years, you can name them on one hand, guys that have done that. Evan Yadier Molina has the most, about 2,200 games with St. Louis. Joey Votto is over 200 with the Reds. Jose Altuve is the current leader. He's at 2,000, over 2,000 with the Astros. Sal Perez, about 17, almost 1,800 with Kansas City. And then, of course, Mike Trout, same number with the Angels. But playing every game with one team just doesn't happen anymore. So, but the Rangers are on the low end of this anyway, in terms of history. If you look at teams where guys, even got Colorado, Todd Helton played every game as a Rocky. And I tried to look at this, and most teams have some iconic guy. So I'm gonna ask you a trivia question here, and if you get this, I don't know what I would do. I might actually eat your cheeseburger. Who is second on the Rangers list, most games their entire career playing with just one team?
Are we including players who are currently active?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
All right, John. I may be cheating just slightly here, but I'm going to go with Ezekiel Duran.
He is second.
Who is first?
Josh Smith.
Josh Smith.
490 games played, all with
there he is. Josh
the
Smith.
Rangers.
Josh Smith at 490, Ezekiel Duran at 433. Josh Young is now at exactly 400.
400,
games.
and that is the top 3 after Rusty. A couple of honorable mentions here. Gino Petralli, believe it or not, was a catcher for the Rangers for a number of years, backed up Pudge Rodriguez for 4 or 5 years. He played 784 games as a Ranger. He's 21st all time. He played in just 25 other games in the big leagues, all with Toronto before he came to Texas, before his stint on the Dr. Pepper loading dock when we signed him off the loading dock working for Dr. Pepper in 1985. And the next one is Adolis Garcia, played 745 games as a Ranger and has played 78 this year with the Phillies. But and St. Louis, little bit with St. Louis prior to coming to Texas. But guys just don't do that anymore. But I do think the Rangers are on the lower end of this, and it kind of demonstrates how guys' careers ended not as a Ranger.
Yeah, that it does. And I will also just point out, John, that we could always once again bring this back to my pal, Michael Young,
Yes,
who played 1,823 major league games, the all-time games played leader for the Rangers, and he played exactly 147 games for anybody else, all in his final year. Just more evidence for why there should be a Michael Young statue at Globe Life Field in Arlington.
But Rusty Greer, just to kind of
You really won't get into this statue thing with me.
No, I won't. And Rusty, just to conclude this, Rusty Greer, a battler, a great player on that 96 team, hit 332, and a career that was certainly derailed by injuries at the end because of how hard he played. And we thank you for
it was a shame that Rusty's career basically ended prematurely because of the reason that fans so glommed onto him, which was his incredible hard effort. You know, the lack of restraint, was always going hard in the field. And it's a shame that ended up leading to his premature end of his career.
And I think he's one of my favorites because when he came up, he was such a quiet kid, really did not like to do media interviews, was very tough to kind of break early on. And he became, it just goes to, and you look at his career path here on the coaching sphere, and he's become like one of the all-time great Rangers. So that's enough for accolades on Rusty, but it's all well-deserved. And that will conclude this week's episode of SportsDay Rangers.
We'll be back next week. It's always great to visit with you, John, and the music in the background.
And we'll see you, Evan. I think you'll be in Cleveland next week, one of your favorite cities, I believe.
I will be in Cleveland, where I once left the ballpark in an ambulance because of an allergic reaction.
Maybe we'll tell that story next week.
Actually, it wasn't the ballpark. It was the hotel, but that's another story. We'll save it for another day. Another Rangers archives in Arlington when we visit Cleveland for something.
Okay. And we'll see you all next week.